Next time they shine your light in the sky, don't go to it. The bat is dead. Bury it. Consider this mercy.
Deep in the bowels of Gotham City lurks a being, garbed in shadow, drenched in rage, and they call this thing the Batman. You probably remember him from his 2022 outing starring Robert Pattinson. However, this film was almost drastically different. You see, it started life as a project set in the Snyderverse and was going to be written and directed by Ben Affleck.
You can handle the hospital, Barry. Somebody has to save the rest of the world, so I was gonna do that.
For those who don't remember, Affleck was cast in 2013 as the Dark Knight to much fan uproar. Despite his status as a beloved member of the exclusive club known as Guys Who Used to Be Batman Today, at the time, many fans were deeply upset that Christian Bale would not continue on as the Caped Crusader. Affleck went on to appear in Batman vs Superman, Suicide Squad, both cuts of Justice League, and The Flash. However, in between Justice League and his eventual return to the role for The Flash, Warner's and DC were preparing a solo Bat project titled simply The Batman.
Well, here I am.
Announced in October of 2014, the project was intended to continue Affleck's meteoric rebirth as a writer, director, and star. Gone were the days of Geely and Jersey Girl. Hot off his Oscar win for Argo, Affleck had firmly reinvented himself. With a string of taut thrillers and expertly crafted crime capers, his directorial efforts and subsequent newfound Hollywood capital, not since Warren Beatty starring in and directing Dick Tracy, had we seen one person so in control of a big-budget comic book adaptation.
What are your superpowers again?
I'm rich.
Work began in earnest on the project in July of 2015 with Affleck and DC writer and executive Geoff Johns being paired up for the project. At the time, the project was kept under lock and key. Rumors were swirling about what the actual plot could be, with Court of Owls and Geoff Johns' own Batman Earth 1 graphic novel being put forward as possibilities. However, the first draft was something else entirely. The draft that was turned in by Affleck and Johns was actually more influenced by the video game Arkham Asylum and the classic Grant Morrison and Dave McKean comic book, Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on Serious Earth. Equal parts probing psychological drama and big-budget superhero epic, this film was supposedly going to be Warner's big swing at competing with what the MCU had been producing. They wanted something that was both a tights and fight action showdown, as well as a character-based drama.
It appears the game is over before it even begins. I'm not playing games, Slade.
The story was going to center on Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke, as the primary antagonist. We would have followed him as he worked to completely dismantle Batman's life. The movie was going to begin with a massive jailbreak from Arkham, orchestrated by Wilson, and then expand from there to be something akin to David Fincher's The Game. Deathstroke would have been toying, manipulating, and deconstructing Bruce Wayne's life brick by brick. He would have been attacking the man and the persona simultaneously. According to Deathstroke actor Joe Manganiello, Deathstroke was going to be depicted as more of a horror movie villain with a tragic backstory. Apparently, the character's motivation was going to be tweaked just slightly. Deathstroke was going to blame Batman for the death of his son, which sent him on a murderous quest for revenge.
Looks like you got my invitation.
This film would have also seen the introduction of Barbara Gordon, aka Batgirl. She would have served as the emotional anchor of the film, acting as Bruce's sidekick and confidant. The finale of the film would have been Deathstroke battling her across Gotham, attempting to use her as bait to draw Bruce Wayne out of hiding. From the descriptions that have leaked online, this sequence sounds like it would have been a completely jaw-dropping climax. This film would have been deeply set inside the Snyderverse conception of the DCEU. Deathstroke, Alfred, and probably Jared Leto's Joker would have undoubtedly made appearances. There also would have been cameos from multiple well-known but previously unseen Bat villains in the Arkham Asylum opening sequence. In a 2020 interview, Manganiello was quoted as saying, "It was this systematic thing. He killed everyone close to Bruce and destroyed his life to try and make him suffer because he felt that Bruce was responsible for something that happened to him." It really seemed like the project was gaining steam and moving towards a green light. However, fate had other plans.
You know you can't do this forever.
I can barely do it now.
After the failure of Affleck's gangster film Live by Night and some issues in his private life, Affleck decided to step down from the director's chair. When asked about leaving the project by the LA Times, Affleck responded, "I looked at it and thought, I'm not going to be happy doing this. The person who does this should love it. You're supposed to always want these things, and I probably would have loved doing it at 32 or something, but I was at the point where I started to realize It's not worth it. Warner Brothers then set about replacing Affleck as the director on the project. They approached a few people, but Matt Reeves ultimately landed the job. Reeves and Affleck attempted to reshape the project into something they could both be enthusiastic about, while still staying true to the core idea of what if Batman starred in the game. After a few rounds of revisions and some major shakeups at the studio, Affleck stepped away from the project entirely.
You know, I tried to direct a version of it and worked with a really good screenwriter, but just kind of couldn't come up with a version that couldn't crack it. And so I thought it was like, you know, time to let someone else take a shot at it.
From here, Matt Reeves continued to work on his vision, taking it off in a very different direction. He swapped out the villain, brought the world down to be very gritty and noir, he emphasized how nihilistic living in Gotham would be, and really tried to craft a standalone adventure of a young Batman being tested in ways he previously had not. Reeves said in an interview with Esquire, "I read a script that they had that was a totally valid take on the movie. It was very action-driven. It was very deeply connected to the DCEU with other major characters from other movies and other comics popping up. I just knew that when I read it, this particular script was not the way I'd want to do it." And that's kind of where things ended for Affleck's version of the Batman for a few years. However, in 2022, concept artist Keith Christensen posted art detailing what the suit would have looked like for the project.
Just like a bat. I dig it.
As you can see, it's more of a Kevlar armor grounded take. This suit steered away from the Dark Knight Returns influenced suit that was first introduced in Batman vs Superman. It's less of a superhero and more of a functional combat suit. The pants are also very similar in style to what they ultimately ended up using in Pattinson's The Batman. Both Affleck's proposed suit and the suit eventually worn by Pattinson owe a lot of inspiration to the Batsuit in the Arkham Asylum games, obviously. Christensen also revealed his look for Deathstroke. The new mask is the most interesting divergence from previous versions of Slade Wilson. The lower jaw component appears to be a rebreather, visually harkening back to both Darth Vader and the Nolan version of Bane.
Let's not stand on ceremony here.
Would this have been explained in the plot? Was Slade present and had his lungs damaged during the tragedy that killed his son? While Deathstroke has appeared on screen in live action both in the Arrowverse and the DCEU, this version of the character does appear to be decidedly more grounded, as Manganiello had previously hinted at. From the paramilitary gear to the shoulder armor to the dual-wielding 45s, this incarnation of Deathstroke the Terminator undoubtedly would have been as lethal as he was horrifying. Whether it was directed by Affleck or Reeves, this version of the Batman sounds like an amazing way to approach the Gotham underworld. Honestly, it feels like what everyone thought Batman Hush was going to be when it was initially being published. A villain from Batman's past rallies a troop of his greatest foes and systematically dismantles his life, putting Gotham's defender up to the ultimate test. And the way that Affleck and company were approaching this concept seems like it would have been one for the ages.
Whatever you do, wherever you go, I'll be watching you.
While the Batman that was produced has some amazing qualities, this version does seem equally as exciting. Most of the filmic versions of The Dark Knight don't challenge Bruce Wayne, only his commitment to the ideals of the Batman. If Affleck's Batman truly did mine from the Arkham games and Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on Serious Earth, it would have been interesting to see those tones melded with Snyder's overall DCEU. The games have such a specific violence-focused aesthetic, whereas the book is much more steeped in a visual dream logic. It's much more focused on Batman and the Joker as totems, and about what these people mean to each other and to the city of Gotham.
On second thought, we do have something to celebrate.
Affleck's taut neo-noir influenced direction in films like The Town and Gone Baby Gone would have worked perfectly for a crime saga version of Batman's world. So to hear that he was picturing this as more of a bombastic superhero epic with a deep emotional core is very surprising. Tragically, other than 2023's Air, Affleck hasn't ventured much into the directing chair in recent years. It would appear that his claims of stepping away from directing Batman because the person in the big chair should love it were genuine. And who knows, maybe there will be a push for an older Batman epic that will pull Affleck back in from the sidelines. But for now, it would appear that his version of The Dark Knight has hung up the cowl for good.
Do you want to get a bite? Like, I'm still hungry.
Not this time.
And well, that's all we have for this episode of Nerdstalgic. What do you think? Would a Batfleck version of the Batman have been better than what we eventually got? Let us know down in the comments below. And as always, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos just like this.